This resident-led storytelling campaign aims to raise awareness about racism in Halton. As Halton residents, we share our personal stories about life in Halton. As Halton residents, we share the impact that the COVID pandemic has had on our lives. As Halton residents, we share the impact that the racism pandemic has had on our lives. These stories are real. We love Halton. Our intention is to build an inclusive Halton. Our intention is to challenge assumptions people may have about racialized residents. We are Halton residents. Some of us may look the same to you, but each of us is different. Each story is unique. Welcome to our world. What made you decide to live in Halton? And having lived here, what have you experienced?
Hi, my name is Edosa Adams-Idode, and this is my story. I moved to Halton 3.5 years ago because I felt that we needed to look for a better high school for my son, so that move was necessary. When we moved to Halton, it was a bit challenging for us because it was a smaller community, and we needed to sort of navigate the information to, first of all, get the right school, and of course, get to understand the town. It's a smaller town, but at the end of the day, it is very warm. People are very friendly, as most Canadians are.
Hi, my name is Ife. I am Nigerian. My family and I relocated to Canada 2 years ago. We were looking for a family-friendly community, and we had a friend living here, and she recommended this community, this region for us. And we found it to be warm and welcoming, community, family-friendly, with lots of good schools and parks for the children. So we're able to get the children settled in early on, enroll them in schools, and of course they had the parts to go play in. So it's been great. So far so good.
Hi, my name is Kennedy Udida. My family of 5 have been residents of Halton for the last 6 years. And we've loved this region that has been home to us. With 3 young children, aged 8 to 14, we choose Halton as the best part of Canada to make our home, primarily due to the quality of education for our children, as well as the peace and serenity that Halton offers us. These benefits we have enjoyed and we hope to continue experiencing.
I am originally from Trinidad, where I received my training as a registered nurse. I migrated to New York City as a permanent resident in 1970 and continued working as a nurse. During that time, I enjoyed visiting my siblings in Canada. In 1975, my family moved to Canada to be nearer my siblings. We moved to Burlington, where my sister lived. Soon I realized life in Canada was not as easy as I expected. Our new home was located in a predominantly white and unfriendly neighborhood.
My name is Nene Akinton, and I've been a Halton resident for 12 years. Living in Halton came about in an interesting way. Many years ago, my husband was a personal support worker, and I dropped him off at a client's house one morning. And he said to me, "Nene, we'll live here one day." We now live about 10 minutes from that street. The experience in Halton has been a double-edged sword. Halton is beautiful and has great schools, but on the flip side, my family has had to deal with anti-Black racism.
My name is Oluwaseun, and I moved into the Halton region because at the time I was relocating to Canada, I researched and I realized that Oakville was the best place to live in Canada. And as we all know, Oakville is one of the cities in the Halton region. I realized that Oakville has very good school boards, schools, facilities, and nice neighborhoods, and it just ticked the boxes for me. So it was a no-brainer that if I was going to move to Canada, I had to be in the Halton region.
My name is Taiwo Ainde. I live in Oakville, Ontario. I'm a mother of 2 amazing kids and a mental health professional. About 3.5 years ago, my family and I moved from Toronto to Oakville, and that has been one of the best decisions that we've made so far. I mean, living in a place where you feel safe, that's really key for us. that my kids can access school easily. That's really key for us. And all these experiences that I have, the community I've built so far, connections I have created so far in my space has been overwhelming and good.
Hello everyone, my name is Lin. I came to Canada 4 years ago with my family from China. Now we moved to Halton area for less than 1 year, 10 months. And before that, we stay in Saskatoon for 3 years. We sell honey to China for our small business because my wife, she was an agriculture engineer in China before. And I am a hydrogen energy engineer. So we decided to move to Halton for our new home because it is a great place for do business here.
What challenges have you faced living in Halton?
Living in Halton for us was a bit challenging in the sense that there were very fewer amenities for teenagers. My kids love to play basketball. The available gyms for basketball were not free. We had to pay for it. And so that was a bit of a challenge for the children.
The challenges we had living in Halton in the early days were employment and transportation. We looked for a job. It took us a long time to get a job. We applied so many jobs. I went to so many interviews I can't even count, and literally had the door slammed in our faces. I applied on Halton website. I wasn't even invited for an interview. And again, the getting around town was tough because the buses didn't go every route. So here in Milton, I live in Milton. Sundays, there was buses don't run on Sundays, and it was really difficult because we go to church and we have to use Uber to go to church. So that was very tough for us in the beginning. Eventually, we are lucky. I was able to get a job at the Premium Outlet Mall. Again, no buses don't go there from Milton, so I had to use an Uber till we could afford to get a car.
While it has mostly been a good experience living in Halton, which in my opinion has unarguably been the best place to live in Canada, 2 of my children in grade 2 and 6 unfortunately experienced some form of racial discrimination at school. These experiences definitely devastated my kids, who wonder why such could occur in such a wonderful community we call home. The good news, though, is that the school handled it very well, restoring our children's confidence in the safe community that we all crave.
Being from a multicultural country, racial discrimination was a new experience for me. As a visible minority, I lacked the skills to deal with racial profiling. Protecting my children from racial prejudice was difficult. They were the only black children in the neighborhood, in their class, and at times the only black child in the school. Verbal discrimination and bullying made it difficult for them to find friends. I also face subtle as well as not so subtle discriminations. As one of the few black employees in my workplace in Halton, I had to prove myself to be an experienced and qualified professional. Some visitors assumed I was the housekeeper. An elderly patient refused to take medications from me because she said my hands were dirty. As a private duty nurse working in an agency, an ill patient refused to let me in his home. He said he did not want a black nurse. It was winter. I had to wait in his driveway until the agency sent a white nurse to relieve me of my duties. Once I realized it was not okay to normalize prejudices, I began to openly discuss and confront my discomfort with racial discrimination, and my healing process began. Those early experiences of racism have a long-lasting negative effect, especially for children.
I have faced challenges in Halton on different levels. I'm originally from Nigeria and I had a great childhood. My parents and my culture prepared me for a time like this. My tenacity and resilience has helped me cope when I experience discrimination as a Halton resident and in my job as a realtor. My minority clients have sometimes been denied homes due to their race. My kids have been followed around in stores because of the color of their skin. When we were building our home, my husband, who is a physician, was asked if he was a soccer player. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a soccer player, but this was a clear case of unconscious bias. I used to be reluctant to pull the race card, but I am frankly exhausted by the degree of covert and overt anti-Black racism my family experiences in Halton. So now, I just call it out for what it is and let the cards fall where they may.
Since I moved here, I'll say I've faced a few challenges. One that strikes me the most is, I'll say, discrimination. We faced some hostility from one of our neighbors who felt like we're not welcome here, more or less.
Despite all these good parts, there also comes challenges. As a woman of color, it's sometimes hard to express who we truly are. It's sometimes hard for people to see who we truly are without having implicit bias, or having my kids not feel so great in their skin in school. Having a more inclusive school is what we really need in a place where we can all grow together.
Horton is a quiet place, full of forest. We love it, and also it is surrounded by big cities. It's very convenient to do business. Has great opportunity to do business and job also. It has an international airport. That means a lot to me because I can move around, connecting the whole world. Also, Halton area is very near to famous universities. University of Toronto, McMaster University, Waterloo University, and many other great universities. Although I haven't chance to enter this university to study, but I'm trying to. I wish I have the opportunity to learn in these universities. And also, I think Halton has a very excellent elementary education. That's great for my kids here. Another big thing is the people here is kind and polite. Actually, all of the Canada, I think people are very kind and polite, and we are very thankful for that. They help me a lot to our life here. Yes.
Did you have to make major adjustments living in Halton?
With respect to major adjustments, moving to Halton, I think one of the main things was that we didn't really have a mall in Halton, and that's because, of course, the population is less dense. So that was sort of a major adjustment because there are fewer shops here. But over time, we fell in love with the town. The town is just very warm and embracing.
What I like about Halton is the multicultural community. We have lots of Nigerians here, Caribbeans, Asians. It's a great mix. My children were able to make great friends here. So I will say that is a plus.
Now, adjusting to life in Halton has not been difficult, as my family and I connect easily with other families, and we've established healthy relationships due to the accommodating nature of Halton residents. Although finding local restaurants and food to cater for a broader demographic has been a challenge, and I'll tell you. This means we sometimes hop into Peel or Toronto regions to shop for some food items.
I adjusted my working hours opposite to my husband's schedule until suitable childcare accommodation was found and to reduce the time my children spent with babysitters. I enrolled them in extracurricular activities where they could mix with other kids and make friends. I tried to show them racial ignorance because of the color of our skin is wrong. We had to drive to Peel or Hamilton to find Caribbean groceries, black hairdressers, and to buy products for their black hair.
Moving to Halton involved making certain adjustments. The most impactful one was that I could not find foods that I grew up eating. I had to drive 45 minutes to find a grocery store that sold these foods. And as a foodie, I enjoy foods from all over the world, but I would love my ethnic foods to be as easily accessible as other global foods.
In terms of trying to make adjustments, I would say I've not really had to make any major adjustments in terms of transportation. We just had to buy a car. So taking my kids to school and back, going for grocery shopping, it wasn't really so much of adjustment. I think it was more of adjusting to the weather. In terms of food, there are so many stores or malls that sell ingredients that I can use to prepare my traditional food from back home in Nigeria. And then I also have caterers, there are lots of Nigerian caterers, and I have the numbers on speed dial if I need any of my favorite Nigerian dishes. In terms of friendships, I want to particularly thank the mothers in my children's school. They've been so welcoming, so warm. They check up on me. They try to draw me in, bring me in, make friends with me. And so that made me feel like this place was home for me.
I would also mention that one of the main adjustments that I had to make moving from Toronto to Oakville was just to having that network of people around me. It was quite isolated at some point, where I'd have to go out of town to visit my friends and family and come back to town, or people having to say that they live far from me. But I've adjusted so far to that, and I've been able to explore what the region has to offer. I love that there are lots of green spaces for walking that helps our mental health. I really love that families can come together, which is what I've seen as a key contributor to this community, building families together. And I like that the diversity is growing every day as I live here in the region.
Of course, we have a lot of challenges during the pandemic in Halton. The biggest thing to us is we moving here from Saskatoon last year in June. Actually, we are a big family. We have 3 kids, and also my mom here to take care of our newborn baby. So we have 6 people need to move. It is a great challenge for us. Firstly, we try to driving, but that seems impossible for me because the newborn baby, I think he is not suitable to do that. So we buy air tickets, and at last my baby cried all 3 hours during the flight. I'm very sorry about that. And but finally we finished this impossible mission, and it is the biggest challenge to us to buy a house and move here during the pandemic. But I think we hope everything will be fine in the future.
What ideas do you have to make Halton a more inclusive community?
Just thinking about that, I recognize that Halton is a very multicultural community, and I think that we need representation across our institutions of government and learning, because when you have a diversified population and you don't have representation across the board, it does generally affect lack of equitable standards that I think every government embraces and promotes. So I would love to see and very equitable representation across the board, so that Halton can be more inclusive for everyone.
My recommendation for making Halton a more inclusive community would be having settlement agencies do more, like making them more accessible to newcomers. We didn't know about settlement agencies when we moved here. I just learned about them recently. I wish we did earlier. It would have made things like more easier for us. But I would say making the settlement agencies more accessible.
An idea that could make Halton a more inclusive community would be the inclusion of other cultures, activities in major Halton events and festivals that will create a lot of awareness and open the doors for acceptance, inclusion, and understanding.
Systemic racism and unconscious biases exist in Halton, but this does not mean that all white people are racist. Racism is a form of violence, and I believe it is my moral duty to call it out whenever I witness it. Cultural activities in Halton to promote a more inclusive community is a start, but there is a lot more to be accomplished. My good experiences outweigh the bad ones, and I'm blessed to have friends of all colors.
I have 3 things I think will make Halton a more inclusive community for new Black residents and frankly other races: education, intentionality, and honesty. And this applies to everyone across board, from our policymakers to fellow residents and even ourselves. We need to educate students about Black history, beyond slavery and the Underground Railroad. These are critical aspects of the Black story, but it does not make it complete. The contributions of people like Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana and Nnamdi Azikiwe of Nigeria add to the rich tapestry of Black culture and history and should be included in history lessons and school libraries. Thank you, Halton District School Board, because I believe you've started doing that in your libraries. Education at home is also important. Parents, what do you know about other races? What do you say about other races at home? For the most part, what you model at home is what your kids will imbibe and replicate. Intentionality. Do you stereotype and act based on unconscious bias? If so, be intentional and commit to engage people as human beings rather than based on the color of their skin. There is good in every human being regardless of race. Honesty. Be honest with yourself when you do an audit of your interactions with people that do not look like you. If you know better, you do better. And for our policymakers, thank you for all you do, but I ask you to be honest with yourselves. Do you truly understand what it means to make policies for other races? And if you don't, consult with people from other races who will sensitize you to the subtleties and nuances of other cultures. How many minorities work in your office, policymakers? Be honest.
Then in terms of what I want to see for new residents so that they can feel more included in the community, I would say bottlenecks in terms of trying to rent a house or buy a house. And what do I mean by bottlenecks? Bureaucratic bottlenecks like asking them for Canadian credit score when they're just moving in, or you asking them if they have Canadian employment, before you can rent a house to them, or before they can buy a house or get mortgage, this sort of thing. I think there should be some adjustments, or should I say some preferences or some privileges that residents should enjoy.
I'd also say that for us to have a more inclusive community for new residents, having to provide more equitable resources is quite important. That I've found so far living in the region, I've found that sometimes I'm able to access certain resources that is available for all people, but sometimes there are resources that are quite not available for especially people of color. And this is an area, a key area that we all need to get more allyship in this area. I also want to encourage that for a more inclusive society, having our voices heard, providing much more accessible resources for people to come together. I think for me, culture is a big important thing on my own piece, and having to find a niche that would make me feel connected. A sense of connectedness is very important in a situation like this. And so from my experience living in the region, I have, through my work, and I've been able to connect with people. I've been able to assimilate with the culture. I've been able to understand where people are coming from. Being open-minded has been a big important factor that has played all this.
I like communication with others. Even my English level is not very good. I believe communication by heart will make our community stronger and more inclusive and more healthy. We come from different cultural background, but we all faces a common challenge in our daily life. So I wish to communicate with others. Sometimes my English is not very good, but I can just a smile is good and feel better, and we can share and learn from each other to make our mind better and make our community better.
How have you been affected by the pandemic?
Oh my goodness, so many ways. Emotionally, financially, psychologically, socially. The children cannot perform the activities that they're used to. I have teenage children that love basketball. Emotionally, trying to reconnect by the virtual world is not the same. The importance of touch has been reinforced. However, I'm grateful that I can still do my work, even though that has been somewhat challenging, particularly because I deal with victims of domestic violence and abuse. There has been, as expected, a very high surge of family violence cases, given the close proximities for families who had outlets where they can deal with their emotions. So just being able to connect with clients in the virtual world, has been a bit challenging as well, because you're trying to provide legal services to somebody who is living with the abuser, and also trying to get as much information to provide that service to. However, one thing that I know, and one thing that I'm confident about, is that this would not last forever. The pandemic is going to come to an end. We have lessons that we have learned with respect to the inequities and the gaps in our system, in our healthcare, in our different marginalized communities. The pandemic has taught us that there's a lot that we need to still do, and there's work that has to be done so that we can begin to close those gaps, those significant gaps that our communities have faced during the pandemic season. So this is all I have to say, and it was such a wonderful time sharing my story.
On the pandemic, it was really hard on everyone. It was hard on the children because they are not able to see their friends, and it was also hard for them to move on to online learning. I put on weight. I had to start going for walks to keep active. But I also say it's a learning experience. It taught people about resourcefulness, learning to physical. As much as we are physically distant, doesn't mean that we can't do things with technology online. So I would say it's been a learning experience.
Well, talking about the pandemic, hasn't this affected all of us? Definitely, you'll agree with me that it has changed our lives in many ways. Where I've experienced visible impact has been the mental challenges faced by my children, whom I've seen break down sometimes when they feel isolated from their friends and unable to be out participating in their favorite sporting activities or even playing with their friends. We know it will pass away, but we hope that as a community, Halton continues to find programs or create activities that creates a society that is more inclusive.
My life since COVID has changed drastically. Volunteer opportunities in the community were placed on hold. I miss that social time with my family and my friends. The lessons I've learned through the pandemic is that COVID does not discriminate based on color or race. It has also shed light on the dedicated, frontline and essential workers in our community. Many of them are minorities with lower paying jobs, but they don't get their deserved respect and recognition. Kindness to others, regardless of color and ethnicity, is vital. We are all human beings and deserve to be treated in a dignified manner.
This is how I've been affected by the pandemic. COVID 1.0 was new and a time to be with family, which was great. COVID 2.0 was less exciting. COVID 3.0 is brutal. My name is Nene Akinton and I've been a Halton resident for 12 years. 12 years of some lovely experience and some not so great ones due to this perennial pandemic called anti-Black racism. Regardless of what I face, I know that I'm God's unique creation and nobody defines who I am. My family and I are still here in Halton, tenacious and resilient as ever.
And then lastly, I'll say the pandemic has really affected me. I'm a very extroverted person. I like the outdoors. I like to travel. I like to go out. I love to meet people. I love to explore my environment. I've not been able to do all that because the pandemic has kept me indoors, literally. Also, in terms of, I would say, job opportunities, there were some job openings that before I moved in, they were available, but because of the pandemic, there was no funding for those opportunities anymore. Even some trainings, some programs were closed because of the pandemic.
And I think at this time, especially during a pandemic such as this, it's been hard. It's really been hard in terms of isolation for us to be able to meet face to face and do things. To be very honest, people of color, marginalized communities have been hit so hard in this pandemic, financially, emotionally. Many people have lost loved ones, and in this time, we really need to get that support. Apart from that support, we need to also have a stronger leadership that would help us scale through this crisis together. We all have our stories to tell, and this is my story. I know that as a woman of color, I am not limited by what you see. I'm just hoping that we and the community can also build on assets, great assets, the diverse assets that people bring, especially racialized communities, and not just stigmatize the people of color just based off their race, ethnicity, religion, and all. It's a story that needs to be heard from generation to generation in my own context, and I'm just hoping that this is something that will be taken much more seriously.
The biggest thing during pandemic in Halton is lack of in-person communication, I think. Because my first plan to move here is to making friends and do some business development. All of this need to in-person communication. But nowadays, that's impossible. So we need to learn online communication. So I think all of us need to learn new things and explore new possibility to make our life normal and better.
Thank you for listening to our stories. Our stories by no means captures everyone's experience. We hope that we have given you a peek into the lives of racialized residents of Halton. We hope that you remember these stories when next you come across a minority in Halton. We expect you to treat us with dignity and the respect every human being deserves, regardless of race, color, national origin, religion, gender, or age. We are all in this together.